मेरा हो गया ओपन विदाउट पासवर्ड, अपना करके देखो जल्दी से।
किती लांब धरते मोबाईल, बघ ना बोलते, बघ ना कसरतीने ती करते. माझं बघितलं ना स्टेटस, काय म्हणले की नाही काही का म्हणायचं फक्त मला काहीच नाही, सहज झालं.
मामा आवाज जात होता, बंद करा ना.
हिंदी अर्धवट मराठी, अर्धा हिंदी अर्धा मराठी होतं म्हणून काळजी करू नको असं खालचं वाक्य होता. मी ऍडमिट आहे असं म्हणतोय तू.
अरे केव्हाचा मेसेज आहे?
आत्ताच्या 3:30 वाजताचा.
नंतर करतो. मग कोणाला केलं टाकलाय?
त्यांनी मला टाकला होता.
At the same time,
secondly, I'd like to congratulate you all for choosing this theme on this. I think this is the last session. It's a very important theme of revival of the rural economy. Perhaps one of the most graphic images that will stay with us in the years to come is this image which is still going on of many workers who have to return from cities to their native places, which are literally hundreds of kilometers away, and many of them have really struggled. So that image, I think, shows that we are in a crisis, and a crisis also is a word which means that there are opportunities. And I think the challenge is, and we can address that challenge, we can rise to the occasion, we have the resources in our country. How do we create an infrastructure in rural areas that will make people happy to be in the rural areas? Older generations and even younger. How do we create infrastructures of education, of health, of different types of employment in the rural areas? In many countries of the world, especially in the materially developed countries, in terms of living standards, there's not much of a difference between the city and the rural. Now, it's difficult for us to reach that, but can we approximate toward that? Can we move towards that? That's a challenge. So I wish you all the best in your deliberations. We have a very good resource person, and I'm sure all of us also will learn a lot. But I wish that we as a nation are able to creatively come up together, so that whether you are living in a rural area or a city or a semi-urban area in our country, we feel happy with the resources that are there. All the best. Enjoy the conversation. Let's learn together.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Father. Thank you for these kind words. Now I request Aditi ma'am to speak to us.
Okay, thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Father Keith, to inaugurate this session. Thank you so much for that. So welcome to the fourth and the last session of the webinar series organized by the Department of Economics. And special thanks to my professor and colleague, Aparna Kulkarni, to coordinate the entire session and all 4 days so beautifully and meticulously. So thank you so much on behalf of the department. So I welcome today's guest of honor, Dr. Kapil Chandrayan. And I'm sure that today's session is going to benefit many of us, those who are doing research in agriculture, rural development. And even during the first session, the speaker of the first session, Dr. Rupa Rege, she said that the key word for to come out of this crisis is rural development, rural infrastructure. So we all are looking forward to today's speaker and his session. So without much further ado, I request Aparna to start the session, and all the best.
Yes. Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah, so before we begin, I would like to introduce today's speaker. Basically, Kapil Chandrayan is my senior, he's my friend, so I'm extremely happy to introduce him to all of you. Dr. Kapil Chandrayan, he has done his MA from SV College, Pune. Then he has also done MBA. Then he did his PhD from Nagpur University in regional development. Currently, he is serving as expert member with Vidarbha Statutory Development Board. He is also a member of the Advisory Council to Vidarbha Industries Association. He is also a researcher and theme writer for training programs related to district human development reports with Yashada, that is an institution in Pune, with NIRI and WHO, World Health Organization. He is also a faculty member and visiting faculty at various management and academic institutions in Nagpur and in the area. He is a columnist in various newspapers, both in Marathi as well as English, and he is right now also a consultant for Nagpur City Metro Project and Nagpur City Smart Cities Project. So with his vast experience and knowledge in this area, we would like him to deliberate with us on the issue of regional development and the revival of the rural economy post-pandemic. So I welcome you, Kapil, and we are all eager to to discuss with you this kind of an issue. So over to you, Kapil.
Yeah, hi everybody. Aparna, am I audible properly?
Yes, and you're visible also. So welcome.
Yeah. Right. So namaskar to everybody. Special thanks to Father Keith, Sawant Madam, my dear friend Aparna, and all my dear friends. So I hope it's the last lecture and I'm not considered as the last man as they consider in cricket. Hopefully I'll get adequate time to bat. So, this is a very interesting topic that has been given to me. First, on one hand, we have the issue of regional disparities in Maharashtra, especially in state of Maharashtra, which have been in practice since the existence of the state or the formation of the state, that is right since 1960. And on the other hand, we have this, a very historic pandemic happening in this world, in this country, and in this region, where there is no sector of the economy which is untouched. So primarily what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about these two aspects, the regional disparities and the impact of pandemic, and then merge them together. And then we will try to probably, deliberate more upon what can be the, ways of revival of the rural economy, because of course it's one of the very critical elements of our entire economic planning, how to revive the rural economy. So my basic, unfortunately, I couldn't make a presentation, but my entire speech today would be based on 4 important pillars, if I can call that. First, I would like to talk about what has been the impact of this pandemic, or more importantly, the lockdown because of the pandemic on the agricultural sector, especially in Maharashtra and Vidarbha. Then what has been the impact on the rural industries? Then a very important sector which normally we miss out in our discussions, that is the impact on infrastructure development. And finally, then the impact on informal sector, about which many people have been talking about. To begin with, let's first try to understand that how the COVID has impacted us. Number one, there has been a direct impact in number of patients, number of infected patients, then critical patients, and unfortunate deaths that have been happening. So on that front, in case of the infection, or in case of the disease as such, we find that the rural areas have been a little more fortunate than the urban areas. So the degree of penetration of this infection has been a little less in the rural areas, for obvious reasons. But at the same time, if we try to look at the impact of the lockdown, then the rural areas are the areas which have been facing a major brunt of this lockdown. Most of the times we discuss about the cities, our media talks about what is happening in the cities, but in the rural areas, the impact is really serious. So now coming to the first part that I would like to talk on is impact on agriculture. When we start discussing agriculture in India, especially in Maharashtra and the different regions of Maharashtra, we must go back to the year 2019. So 2019 was not a very good year for our agricultural sector. The agricultural growth rate was very sluggish for different reasons. One of the major reasons is unseasonal rains. I don't know how many of you have observed, but at least in this part of the state, that is Vidarbha, right from June 2019 till June 2020, there has been no single month where we have not had rains. It poured down in every month, and when it pours down in every month, it is not at all good for your agriculture, especially when it rains, when the crop is actually near the harvest time. And if it rains, then it results in a big loss for the farmer. So these first reason for the sluggish agricultural growth was unseasonal rains. In many parts, we had problems like hailstorms, we had flooding. That was another important factor which added to the agricultural crisis. Now, if we look at the major crops of Vidarbha region, number one, we have orange, we have cotton, we have tur, we have chana, we have soybean, and we have vegetables. So all these crops, except the paddy growing areas in Vidarbha, that is, which are concentrated mostly in the eastern part of the region, rest all the districts have faced a severe agricultural crisis and crop damage because of these unseasonal rains. Now that was a natural factor which resulted in the sluggish agricultural growth. At the same time, we also had a lot of man-made problems. The biggest man-made problem was the inefficiency of the procurement system of this agricultural produce. When a farmer invests his time, money, efforts in the farm, and with a hope that he will fetch a good price for his produce, and unfortunately that doesn't happen, it is one of the most disheartening scenes that we can ever see. And exactly same keeps on happening in Vidarbha. I'm sure all of you at least might have heard the dark period of history somewhere around 2005-2006, which was infamously known for the suicide of farmers. The government says that around 12,000 farmers committed suicide, but there have been different researches which prove that the figure of farmers who have committed suicide is beyond 50,000 in Vidarbha alone. So why this happens? The primary reason for this is when the farmer does not get a good price of his produce. Now, why I'm telling you all these things is when we are entering the area of studying the impact of the lockdown and the pandemic, we must not forget that we have not had a very good past. In fact, the overall GDP was down, and that too, especially the agricultural contribution to the GDP was going down drastically, and regions like Marathwada and Vidarbha especially had huge problems in the agriculture sector. Now, if we come to the impact of COVID-19, what exactly is happening? First and hello, Aparna, am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
you're audible, but sometimes in between your voice is breaking.
Okay. I'll try to see. I think probably it might be the
Maybe internet issue.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So coming to the impact, the first problem that we had in terms of the impact of COVID or the lockdown was that non-availability of agricultural inputs at the right time. So normally in this part of the country, the farmer starts tilling or plowing the land and preparing it for the next round of cultivation somewhere after 15th of April. And that is the time when the farmer tries to gather inputs in terms of seeds, in terms of fertilizers, in terms of small equipments. They also kind of try to create a pool of resources. They also try to hire machines like tractors, etc. But unfortunately, because of this lockdown, this was an area which was absolutely worst hit, I can say. And that is where many middlemen and many people started taking disadvantage of the situation, where the prices of these inputs started going up rapidly. And until there was a very critical intervention from the government, we could see that there was huge economic exploitation happening wherever farmers wanted seeds or fertilizers or any kind of other inputs. Second problem with the large-scale migration, we have just listened to a very informative lecture yesterday on the migration issue. So with this migration, what actually happened was that in Vidarbha, we have a very typical issue. Like, we have our borders with Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. And a lot of our labor come from Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, especially Chhattisgarh. So with this labor coming in and then, the backward migration happening to their own places, again in the agricultural sector, we also faced, people normally say that this crunch of labor is faced only by the industries or the MSMEs, but it is not true completely in case of Vidarbha. In Vidarbha, many agricultural laborers are also coming from that area. And we have had a very negative impact of that migration. And now we have a serious crunch of people. Now, how did it affect? It affected because when actually the lockdown started, it was harvest time for many of the crops. And when when the farmers wanted to, actually harvest the crop, they employ a lot of people, these migrant laborers, and at that particular time, it was not available. This was true, especially in case of your wheat and oranges. So there was a big problem where the farmers did not get adequate labor to, get back, harvest their produce. Then another important thing was that because of the pandemic, the procurement process, which normally takes place somewhere, it starts early in the month of April, actually got delayed. There was lot of issues with I would say, the governance model in that particular area, and procurement centers.
Excuse me, sir.
Not operational. Yes.
Sir, regarding agriculture produce marketing committees, why the states are lagging behind in adopting their own model APMC Act, and the integrating of APMCs all over the country under the e-national agriculture market is very poor. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, I'll just complete and then probably we can take the questions, if it is okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just 1 minute. Sorry to interrupt, but I request all the participants to, type your questions in the chat box. So at the end of the session in Q&A, question answers, we can take all of them. So please hold on all your questions. Let the speech get over. Thank you.
Okay. So I was talking about, the delay in the procurement process. So especially in Vidarbha, once we had the rise in prices for the pulses, that is especially the tur dal, there has been a lot of inclination towards cultivating more and more tur, especially in the western Vidarbha, 5 districts of Amravati division. And then we have been having a surplus production of tur dal in those regions. And as a result, the government has to procure it. But unfortunately, this year, the process was delayed, and that impacted the farmer in terms of absolutely zero liquidity with the farmer. The farmer had no money to buy the inputs because their produce was not procured. It was lying idle somewhere. And to add to the miseries of the farmer, as I mentioned earlier, it was raining throughout the year. In every month of 2019, since June 2019 till today, it has rained in Vidarbha. And many places, even as somebody was mentioning and asking, the agriculture produce marketing committees, even in the APMCs, we find that many of our stock was getting rotten because of these unseasonal rains. So that was one very important impact, that the procurement process was delayed. Now it has started. There was a lot of political pressure exerted. There were, farmer groups actually exerted their pressure, and then the procurement process has started off late in the month of May, but it has not, got the grip as we expected. And still there are a lot of gaps to be filled in the procurement process. So the net impact of this is the farmers are devoid of liquidity and they are unable to invest for the next round, that is for the Kharif season. Then, one very unique phenomena, I'm sure that is also experienced in the rest of the country, but it's very special in Vidarbha, that we still have the professional money lenders. And let me go into a little details. Who are these professional money lenders? These are not the stereotype sahukars that we see in the Bollywood movies. But in Vidarbha, anybody who has got a fixed income can easily become a money lender. For example, a professor working in a rural college is known to be a good money lender because he receives the salary every month. And that is how, he gives certain loans, small loans of 5,000, 10,000 bucks to the farmer and then charges interest. So this is a very well established but unfortunate system in Vidarbha and everywhere. So even government employees working with either the state government or the central government or even bank employees are, playing the dual role of whatever their primary role is as well as that of a money lender. Now, with this liquidity problem that has arose right now, the business of these money lenders is growing leaps and bounds. So there is a huge demand. I was watching the presentation of Professor Abhyankar yesterday, and he was mentioning about a study that people had to borrow money for, even their groceries. And that situation is very true in the rural areas of Vidarbha also. where people borrowed money for groceries and other necessaries, aspects like medicines, etc. And this money was borrowed from none other than people like these professional money lenders. So what is actually happening is the farmer or the rural resident of regions like Vidarbha and Marathwada is getting indebted day by day. And unless we find a solution to this, unless we go to the revival part, it's not possible to get him out of that trap. Thirdly, we had a very ambitious program in Vidarbha for poultry development, for inland fisheries, and for goatry. But with the advent of this COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown, this sector faced a huge loss. To again add to the problems of that, there were huge, rumors going around that if you eat meat, if you eat eggs, then the chances of having COVID infection is high. So there were several occasions when the farmers had to destroy whatever they had produced in terms of eggs or these hens, etc. So that was a double loss to the farmer because they had invested in the feed for the animals, and now they are not getting a good price of it. The only sector which was doing good, or I would say fair, was the dairy sector. Vidarbha is not known to be a dairy hub for sure. In fact, to tell you, like in Vidarbha, we have to import milk to the tune of 2.5 to 3 lakh liters every day. And it mostly comes from regions like your Ahmednagar and some parts of Marathwada, and also from states like Gujarat. So dairy was one area which was still keeping people alive to a certain extent, because the procurement of milk dropped, and that surplus milk was available in the village. Subsequently, the procurement increased, and people started getting somewhat, reasonably good returns for milk. So the districts which were good or net milk producers or suppliers have had a good or a relatively better scenario in the rural areas as compared to the districts which were not milk producing. To give you a specific example, Bhandara is a milk exporting district. So the condition of the farmers and the farmers associated with milk cooperatives in Bhandara was much better than those of those farmers who were placed in Gadchiroli, because Gadchiroli they don't produce milk. There are historical and cultural reasons, because the tribals don't believe in taking away the milk from the cow, because they say that it belongs to the cow. And that's why things are a little difficult for the animal husbandry and the dairy department to promote this dairy industry in Gadchiroli. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that wherever the dairy was in an organized sector, people did well, they could earn some amount at least, and they could sustain their family. So one learning for us is these sectors which serve as a supplementary income for the farmers needs to be promoted. Now, just to sum up the net impact of this agriculture, number one, there was no liquidity in the hands of the farmers, for simple reason: the procurement did not happen at the right time. There were a lot of gaps in the procurement process. It started late, and so farmers did not have the revenue for their produce, and as a result, they couldn't invest for the next season. Second, there has been a steep fall in the rural demand for industrial goods. All of us have studied that India is a big market, and the bottom of the pyramid is the rural economy. So, this rural economy, all of a sudden we saw a deep diving curve where the demand for the industrial goods had gone down. Normally, this is the time when people tend to buy, motorcycles or some kind of consumer durables. This is the time when most of the rural areas are now connected with mobile connectivity. So a lot of mobile purchases are happening these days in the rural areas. But unfortunately, since the lockdown, it has all become zero. So there is a huge fall in the rural demand for industrial goods. Third important net impact on agriculture is increased indebtedness of farmers. And I will be not surprised, and may God prove me wrong, but I fear that in the coming times, we may see a rise in number of farmer suicides in regions of Vidarbha and Marathwada because the indebtedness is going high. And when the debt becomes unpayable, unfortunately, this is the the way the farmers adopt. So that is my very a very dreaded fear that I have, and may God prove me wrong on that. Finally, there is increased pressure on farming with more number of family members now dependent on farming. So over a period of time in the post-liberalization period, or in the last 10-15 years, what we had seen was there was an outbound migration, and almost at least one member from each rural family had migrated to the nearby town, were either working in the industries or working in the service sector, or they were, they got themselves employed in the unorganized sector in certain cities. But with this consistent lockdown, all of them have now come back to the family. They have come back to the to the farm, and now this has increased their dependability. When we talk of economic models, I'm sure all of you must have studied that in a country like India, where we have excessive dependence on the farm, we need to take out certain population and make them independent of their dependence on the farming thing. But again, because of this lockdown and pandemic, we are going to go back to the same situation. So I think that was all about the impact on agriculture in the rural area. Now let's quickly talk about the the rural industries. I'm sure you might have heard that 51% MSMEs in India are actually rural industries, and like in any other part of India, the rural industries of Vidarbha and Marathwada also had a lot of problems. First problem they faced was there was lack of working capital. Because the circular flow of money in the economy stopped, the liquidity crunch arose, the working capital issues arose. And as a result of that, they couldn't pay the raw material. They couldn't pay for the raw material which they had already purchased. They couldn't pay the wages and salaries of their workers. They even couldn't pay, in many cases, there are applications now coming to the government and the distribution companies of electricity that we are not in a position to pay the electricity bills right now. So working capital was the area which was most adversely hit. Second problem, which all of us know, that now that we have started unlocking the economy, the problem that we face now is non-availability of labor, and that is a big problem. Even if with the package announced by the central government, there are certain financial liquidity arrangements being done by the RBI and the central government, still with no labor to work, it's very difficult for the rural MSMEs to start on and start walking on the path of revival. Then because of the sudden drop in demand, another big challenge is how do they sell their products? Firstly, they are already trapped in a crunch for the working capital. Secondly, they have no money to invest in marketing and pre-sales activities. And with already diminishing demand or already low demand, the situation or the scenario is not very good for the rural MSMEs. And one more important aspect is that, though the government package speaks that the whatever dues the government has to pay to these MSMEs, they will be returned in 45 days. But still, in most of the cases, government revenue for most of these MSMEs is not more than 50%. 50% and more of their revenue comes from the open market, that is private entrepreneurs. And now with the loss of liquidity in the market, sudden loss of liquidity in the market, their recovery is stuck. And with this stuck recovery, things are really difficult for them to give a push and go back on the revival line. Then coming to the infrastructure development part, so this is a very important part. I would like to spend some time on this. What actually happens is, and here I would like to bring in the the regional disparities angle. The important part is why let us first try to understand why do we have regional disparities, why all regions have not been able to go alike. one of the major reasons is the investments that we have made in infrastructure development in different regions. For example, if you see the investments made in agriculture or in irrigation in Western Maharashtra and compare them to the investments done in Vidarbha and Marathwada, you see a drastic difference. And let me come to this why. I think I was just some message just flashed, and they were just, somebody was asking about the role of Vidarbha Development Board. Let me bring that part here a little. Actually, how is this distribution of development funds done at the state level? In fact, many of you might be knowing that we have an article called as Article 371 bracket 2, 371(2). So this article of the Indian Constitution actually empowers the governor of Maharashtra to distribute the development funds of the state equitably in all the regions. When we say regions, we primarily talk about three regions. One is Vidarbha, which comprises of 11 districts. Second region is Marathwada, which comprises of 8 districts, and then everything else is rest of Maharashtra. So it includes the northern Maharashtra, it includes the western Maharashtra, it includes the Konkan, it includes the Mumbai and the suburbs, etc. So these are the three distinctions made. And when I say rest of Maharashtra, it would mean all these regions together. So the governor has the power to equitably distribute the funds. And how does the governor do it? Governor simply employs a formula which is given by the planning department of the government of Maharashtra. Now let's talk of irrigation. Since we are discussing about the impact on infrastructure, let's talk of irrigation. Irrigation, as you all know, is one of the most critical input for agricultural development. And the regions of Marathwada and Vidarbha have been agriculture in nature since long. But unfortunately, even after calling them agricultural regions, they couldn't develop. And one of the reasons was that we couldn't invest much in the irrigation development of this region. Just to give you a small example, in Vidarbha, in eastern part of Vidarbha, in the district of Bhandara, we have a project called as Gosikhurd project. Now, any one of you can just Google it and see the details of it. This project was actually started by our late Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, in the year 1984. I am repeating, 1984. Probably many of you might have been born after that. But even today, the project is not complete. The reason is that we couldn't invest. We couldn't invest in that project. And with delay of every year, there was cost and time overrun. There were entire process of getting the approvals and etc. You know, there are a hell lot of processes that we have to go through to clear the infrastructure projects. So that process was taking more time. Then to add, we had the environmental clearances issue, and so long and so forth. The list is unending. As a result of which, we see that even today the project is not complete. And finally, the last government of Maharashtra decided to hand that project to the central government, and then it was declared as a central government project. And now the investment has started flowing in. The point is, I was mentioning about the formula which is given to the government for the distribution of funds. Now, what is that formula? How is it? What is the basis of that formula? Whenever there are, let's assume that there are 100 rupees to be distributed in the three regions of Vidarbha, Marathwada, and rest of Maharashtra. How will the governor decide how much is to be given to which region? So there is a simple formula which uses two parameters. The two parameters are population of the region and net sown area of the region. Now, this is a flawed principle, and Vidarbha Development Board has been fighting for it, and fortunately now the governor's office has accepted it that we are going to change the formula. Now, why it is flawed? Let me explain it in a minute. The first parameter, that is population, has 50% weightage, and the second parameter, net sown area, also has 50% weightage. When we give 50% weightage to a parameter like population, we see that there is a clear outbound migration happening, not today, but from years, from the regions of Vidarbha and Marathwada towards the more developed regions, that is the rest of Maharashtra. what is the result of this? The result of this is 45% of your population of Maharashtra is urbanized. The total population of Mumbai, Mumbai suburban, Thane, New Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, and Aurangabad is around 6 crores. The total population of Maharashtra being somewhere around 11 or 12 crores, let's say now. So the point is, with this much huge concentration of population in selected region of the state, obviously the state is going to get more funds. And this population living in the urban area has nothing to do with the irrigation per se, except eating the food grains and vegetables that have grown by irrigating those crops. So the first imbalance happens when we use such kind of formula. So because we have been using this formula, over a period of time, the rest of Maharashtra has been getting additional funds on the irrigation front. As a result, the irrigation pattern improved in the rest of Maharashtra as compared to Vidarbha and Marathwada. Since the irrigation pattern improved, the net sown area of this rest of Maharashtra is obviously higher than that of Vidarbha and Marathwada. And again, on the second parameter, that is net sown area, rest of Maharashtra is getting more funds. So it has now become a vicious circle, because they have good population, high population, and they have good net sown area. They get more funds, and that is how they get more investments, and that is how their irrigation develops. So this is how regional imbalances start taking place. Secondly, let us talk about other sectors of infrastructure also. I mentioned about the Gosekhurd project. What actually happens is, whenever there is a delay of even 1 year in completing a project, the government says a fresh administrative approval has to be taken for that project's expenditure, because with 1 year delay, the allocated budget lapses, and next year there is a cost overrun, because there is an increment in cost. There is an escalation in cost. And that is why with the new increased cost, the state government says you again have to come back to us to get a sanction for that, because we will give you money for it. Now, in the entire process, what happens, even if there is 1 year delay, then the project is almost shelved. It is taken on the side track. It is dumped in a way. And with this pandemic, the work has stopped in almost, if I'm not wrong, 105 small, medium, and large irrigation projects in Vidarbha alone. So all these 105 projects, work has halted. No work is happening. All laborers have gone back to their native places. The contractors are busy in their homes. Nobody's working on the field. As a result of this, when, let's say, in the month of September or October, earliest the better, when these people go back to the field, again they will have to take an administrative approval for the cost, because there will be an increased cost of completing the project now. And as a result of that, the project will be shelved. And this has been happening historically in Vidarbha and Marathwada. Secondly, let me tell you about something about backlog. Probably you, being students of economics, you might have heard the term backlog. So which are the underdeveloped districts or regions, and which are the more developed districts? So there was a parameter developed by a committee called as the Dandekar Committee, or formally it was called as the Fact-Finding Committee on Regional Imbalances in Maharashtra. It was constituted in 1983, and its report, I think, is available on the net, or you might get it in good libraries. So it was for the first time that the concept of backlog was defined in the state of Maharashtra. What is a backlog? You calculate the state average on any particular indicator. For example, net sown area of Maharashtra is X. So all the districts which have net sown area below X, less than X, will be called as the backlog districts. So this is the state average method that we use. And in this method, we find that certain districts are better performing than the state average and certain districts are slightly lower performing than the state average. So the gap between the state average and the achievement of the district which is below the average is called as the backlog of that particular sector. Now, this topic of backlog is a huge topic. There have been a lot of discussions in the House of Maharashtra State, etc. Will not go into that. But what I'm trying to say is that it was in the year 2011 that the government of Maharashtra declared that the financial backlog is over. In Maharashtra, there is no financial backlog remaining. But then people of Vidarbha again, kind of raised their voice, and we told them, even if the financial backlog has been removed, the physical backlog has not been removed. For example, if you require 1 crore rupee for constructing a dam, the government says, yes, we have given you 1 crore rupees, so the financial backlog is over. But it is not that simple. We have to ask the question, has the dam been really built? Is it operational? Is it yielding the results it's supposed to yield? The answer is no. And that is where the concept of physical backlog comes into the picture. Now, in the entire state of Maharashtra, if you talk of irrigation, there are only 4 districts which have certain physical backlog remaining. And unfortunately, all these 4 districts are in the region of Vidarbha. They belong to the Amravati division. The districts are Akola, Amravati, Buldhana, Washim. So these 4 districts are still having irrigation backlog as compared to the figures of 1994. Let's not even talk about the fresh backlog that has been created. But even the backlog as per the figures or the calculations of 1994 is still prevalent in these 4 districts of Vidarbha. Now, with this background, you will see that in a scenario like this pandemic, where the work is affected, the laborers have gone back, they are not going to come back, in the near future, because they will be now cultivating on their field, they will be working in the agricultural sector in their respective areas, and most probably what I feel is the most probable date of return of these laborers would be somewhere after Diwali. That is, once this Kharif season is over, probably they would come back for 2 reasons. They will have no work on the agricultural field at that time. And secondly, hopefully, the pandemic situation would have been improved by then. So with this long gap, what happens to the infrastructure projects in this backward region? For sure, these projects are going to see a huge cost overrun. With the cost overrun, we again will have to go to the government. We'll have to again get a fresh administrative approval. And now with the damage this pandemic has caused on the government treasury, in the near future, I don't see that the government will be in a position to invest on such projects. As a result, you will see the backward regions will be pushed back into poverty and misery again. They will lose big time in the development race as compared to the other developed regions of the state. Same is the story with roads. If I have to talk of infrastructure, I don't know whether you have heard a word called as Pandan Raste. Pandan Raste are the roads which are connecting the different agricultural fields. And these roads are really important for the farmers to take out their produce from the field to the main roads. Similarly, there are village roads, and there are, this is a huge capillary network of roads. And all these roads in Vidarbha normally go for maintenance in the month of March and April. Now this year, this was not able because of the pandemic. As a result, with the coming monsoon, these roads will be devastated. After the monsoons pass, and hopefully the pandemic also passes, our treasury will have no money for the repair of these roads. And again, probably we will have the condition of 1960s and 70s prevailing on the rural roads in Maharashtra, or rather in Vidarbha and Marathwada. Another important aspect, lot of works were being a lot of bridges were being constructed over different rivers, especially in the eastern part of Vidarbha. I hope all of you have heard about Hemalkasa, where the great Amte couple stays, and they have been doing their great work. They stay in a taluka or a block called as Bhamragad. Now Bhamragad is connected to the rest of the district, and it has a border. There is a river called as Perlkota, which serves as a border of that taluka. And if anybody wants to go from Gadchiroli or from Nagpur or from Chandrapur to Bhamragad, they have to cross the river, and there is a very low level bridge on the river Perlkota. Every year, you can just Google it, every year, for at least 15 days, the bridge is submerged under the river Perlkota because of flooding. So on request of people like us, the government took up construction of a bridge on that Perlkota river. Now again, what is going to happen to that bridge? I'm sure for the next 5 years, the bridge will not be constructed because the work has been halted now. Then we have the monsoon. After the monsoon, we will have no money for it. So this is the impact of pandemic on infrastructure development in Vidarbha. And as a result of this, because we will not be able to invest in the infrastructure, it is going to adversely impact the economic growth, economic development of this region for next 5 to 10 years. We have been pushed back by at least 10 years. That is the grave impact of pandemic. Even two new airports were constructed in Vidarbha under the UDAN program. One was Chandrapur, one was Amravati. Total work stopped. If Amravati airport would have been operational, all the orange growers from the western Vidarbha region would have got a great opportunity to export their oranges directly. Now that's not possible. Then the excellent quality of rice varieties which have been patented and which are grown in the regions of Chandrapur, Bhandara, Gondia and Gadchiroli could have got a nice opportunity of being exported through the Chandrapur airport. Again, they are now losing out on that. Secondly, lastly, on infrastructure part, one big problem is energization of agricultural pumps. If most of the areas, especially in the western Vidarbha, are rain fed, so there is a government scheme that you can dig a well, government provides certain subsidy on that, and with that well you can exploit the groundwater for farming. But to do that, you need a pump, agricultural pump, and that needs to be energized. You need to give electricity to it. With the pandemic, all works have stopped, and there is a huge backlog being created for this energization. There are at least 5,000 cases I personally know where the farmers have actually paid the dues to the distribution companies. The only job remaining was to draw a line from the nearest transmission line and connect the agricultural pump of the farmer. But I'm sure it won't be possible for next 1 year at least. So again, we are pushing the farmer in distress. Now, lastly, what I would like to say is that in Vidarbha, we have got a huge informal sector, and I'm sure you will be surprised if I tell you that which is the most profitable business in the rural areas these days. It's not agriculture, for sure. It's not any kind of other business. It's a very small pan kiosk. I don't know what you call it in Mumbai, but there is something what they eat. It's a mix of your betel nuts and tobacco. They call it kharra, which is very injurious to health. The cost of that kharra, we did a small study on that. The cost of that kharra ranges from 14 rupees to around 28 rupees, and on an average, one person consumes 3 such quantities of kharra, 3 units of kharras per day. And these are all young people of the villages. They have not been able to migrate, so they are staying in the village. They are not purely farmers, not purely in any other occupation, so caught in between. And what they do is they pass their time on the pan kiosk and eat lot of kharra, and that is how one of the most profitable business in these villages is kharra. Second most profitable business in villages in the rural areas these days is mobile accessories and recharge shops. So they are doing great business. But with the pandemic happening, all these shops, small eateries, then the people who were into the transportation sector, who were into supply of food grains and milks and other things, small restaurants, they have had a very, very bad impact. And as a result of this, the indebtedness in these regions has increased a lot. So finally, what I want to say from my end is that we have had already backward regions like Vidarbha and Marathwada, where the per capita income has been significantly lower than the state average, where the GDP has been, gross district domestic product has been relatively less as compared to the state average, where the infrastructural facilities have been very less as compared to the state average. And now with the advent of pandemic, it is going to multiply the problems, in leaps and bounds. And it is not only a problem of the future. This lockdown and this pandemic has actually created a huge, huge problem for the present as well as for the future. And if we want to revive this, the only solution that we have is to increase investments in this region. Unfortunately, what we can make out through the current state of affairs is that we are more focused on the urban areas. Of course, the direct effect of the pandemic has been more in the urban areas, as I said earlier. But still, if we want to revive the economy, very important aspect we have got is to invest in the rural economy, especially in the farm sector, empower the supply chain of this agriculture. So right from your agricultural inputs to your storage and processing, this supply chain needs to be redesigned again with the minimum interference of, the middleman. And as somebody was, asking me the questions about the APMC, let me make a very small comment about the APMCs. I don't know how many of you are aware, but the APMCs have unfortunately become huge political addas. And because I have seen it very closely, I can say with authority, people are more interested in becoming the chairman of a APMC rather than becoming a MLA or a MLC. For obvious reasons, let's not discuss that. But these APMCs have been huge centers of corruption, and where the farmer is exploited in an organized manner. And that is why I feel that it is a very welcome step by the central government when the central government has allowed the farmer to sell his produce outside the APMC. This is a very welcome step, I would like to say. So coming back to the revival, number one, this is a golden opportunity for us to redesign the rural supply chains, number one. Number two, let us invest on the rural infrastructure, because it is the rural infrastructure which is going to get us back on track. When the lockdown started, around, let's say, 20% of the GDP was coming, which comes from the essential services. They were operational, and 15% agriculture. GDP comes almost 15% comes from agriculture, and agriculture were operational. So the only economic activity per se which was operational and which was still giving us results, which was surviving us, was agriculture. So there is, let's not shy out and say that, oh no, we are a developed society, we are not dependent on agriculture, we are more dependent on services. We have seen the plight of services. Services sector is the sector which is the first one to get the hit. There's nothing wrong in growing through services, but unless and until we have a very
Sir, you are not audible.
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yeah. So I think this is the right time for us to redesign our supply chains, to redesign our economic models, and focus more on the primary and the secondary sector. I think I will stop here, and then we may have some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kapil Chandran, for this wonderful session. We are already having several questions from the participants. So, first question, as the participant has asked, it is about the APMC Act that has been changed by the government. I think you have mentioned a bit about it, but then if you want to throw some more light on that, please do it. So, how will you comment on
As,
this?
yeah, as I said, I have watched the APMC functioning very closely. So it's actually a nexus. Unfortunately, it was not supposed to be that way, but it has turned into a nexus. And as a result of that, the farmer was actually supposed to sell only in the APMC earlier, and because he had no choice, he had to sell at the rates which were offered at the APMC. Secondly, in times of crisis, like last year when there was issue of the procurement of tur dal, especially in Vidarbha, the tur dal of farmers was not procured by the APMCs despite of straight orders from the government. In fact, the tur dal which was sold by the intermediaries, if I can say them, if not middlemen, that was purchased in advance, and then it's all a nexus. So that's why I say I am very happy that the farmers have been freed from the clutches of the APMC, and it's a very welcome step. Hello, Aparna? Hello.
Hello, Aparna. Hello, Aparna. Kapil, I think Aparna has been disconnected.
Yeah, I think she's disconnected. So,
yeah, Kapil, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to know that what is the role of University of Agriculture in Vidarbha?
See, in Vidarbha, we have got one agriculture university in Akola, that is the Punjab Rao Deshmukh University.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what has been the output? We actually, in fact, did some statistical study on the pass outs of this university. And that is true about almost all the agriculture universities in this country. It does not help the farmer by producing a farm. So what happens to the pass outs of the agricultural universities is they either land up in seed companies or fertilizer companies or tractor companies or crop insurance companies as executives.
Okay.
Very less people of them actually go back to the field and utilize the knowledge that they have earned there. Okay. Second big problem with the agricultural universities everywhere, and especially in Vidarbha, is that they have got a very weak link, and that is the extension wing. Okay. In fact, the extension wing of the agricultural universities should be a very robust one. They unfortunately have not been able to do that. As a result, the research that takes place in this university is not going on to the land. So the principle that we say from lab to land is actually not happening in case of agricultural universities. And let me put on record one unfortunate fact. This I think a lot of people will be unhappy from the agricultural universities, but the scientists who are conducting research in these agricultural universities are highly influenced by the the foreign companies and multinational companies especially, and the result they produce actually leads to promotion of the products of these multinationals. So the agricultural model that we want to promote the local varieties and local seeds is actually not happening. And that's the result why we can say that the agricultural universities in Vidarbha and even elsewhere have not been that effective to improve agricultural scenario.
If we want to change this scenario, then what steps to be taken? What steps to be taken, or what can we do in this case?
If you specifically talk of the agricultural university problem, I think one good solution we have got is we have got a very good program called as the skill development program. Now again, the problem with the skill development program is that everybody wants to go for a beauty parlor or a computer training kind of skill development, which is not going to help us. In fact, a couple of years back, the government of Maharashtra issued a notification banning registration of new skill development companies into computer and beauty parlor. What we need is, let me tell you a very interesting thing. We were talking to farmers in the Amravati division. Amravati division has slightly larger average land holding as compared to the rest of Maharashtra.
Okay.
Another big phenomena which is happening in agriculture is that now the children don't want to pursue agriculture.
Right.
But agricultural land is there. The family owns the agricultural land. So these families which have large agricultural land and their children don't want to pursue agriculture are in search of somebody locally we call them Diwanji, but formally we can call them as farm managers. So there is a huge demand of these farm managers. So this farm manager, what should be the qualification? The farm manager should understand the cropping pattern, should understand something about fertilizers, should understand something about crop insurance, should understand something about the mandi, and things like that. So jack of all kind of person we require. So not a very educated person or a BSc agriculture kind of person. So to solve the problem, I feel if we employ the skill development program and create more of farm managers, I think that can solve the local employment problem as well as it will improve the productivity of the agriculture in our region.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Kapil.
Yeah.
Is
Thank you,
Aparna
ma'am.
back?
Yes. I'm there.
Yeah, Aparna.
Okay. Yes. So the next question is about the farmer producers organization, FPOs. So do you think that these FPOs are efficient to solve the problems related to agriculture marketing?
FPOs are a good solution, I would say. Basically, why? Because all of you know it achieves economies of scale. And you might have read excellent paper by Dr. Ambedkar where he states the problem of Indian agriculture, and that actually when he stated in 1950s, it is actually turning true now. We have got small fragmented land holding which is non-viable. So when FPO comes into the picture, there is aggregation of land and there is pooling of land, and these people do it more professionally. So per se, theoretically, farmer producer organization is a very good concept and should be promoted, but conditions apply. Now what is that condition? As it happens in case of all government policies, there is something called as elite capture. I know a few FPOs which have been established by multi-millionaire industries in Vidarbha, industrialists in Vidarbha. So, like somebody in their family says that let's buy a land. So they buy a land, then they kind of create a group of farmers around that, which is led by that industrialist or a representative of the industrialist. And because he is a big man, everybody kind of, rallies behind that person. The FPO is formed, and then the FPO ultimately serves the interest of that single entity rather than serving the interest of the small farmers. So that is the area where we need some.
Right.
Where we farmer or FPCs, as they call it, farmer producer companies, is a very good concept, and there have been a lot of good success stories of FPO.
Thank you. Yeah. The next question is about the role of the development boards. As you are serving on such a board, what is your view on the status of development boards in India currently, and the specific role of the Vidarbha Development Board as such?
Very quickly, I told you about how these boards were created. Actually, they were created under Article 371(2) of the Indian Constitution, and since 1994, these boards have been performing as the eyes and ears of Honorable Governor. So, if anything wrong happens with a particular region, these boards have been brave enough to go to the governor and point out that okay, so there was a phenomena called as diversion of funds. So funds which were meant for a particular region were not given to the region, but were instead given to some different region. So this is not allowed under the Article 371(2) and the orders of the governor thereafter. Because this was happening, the development boards were in place. They could, because it is a statutory platform, people could raise their voice through these platforms, and actually the diversion of funds in many cases was stopped. Number one. Number two, the development boards also do a lot of regional planning activities. They also try to find out a lot of areas. For example, I'll speak more about the development board. Hello. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
you're audible. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Vidarbha Development Board actually prepared an action plan for inland fisheries in Vidarbha. Now, what is the problem with that? You know, I'm not a fish eater, but I mean those who eat can appreciate that. I'm told that inland water fishes are more tastier than the marine fishes, and they have a good demand in the international markets of Dubai, even in the markets of Calcutta and Hyderabad. So Vidarbha region, including some part of Marathwada, can be a good producing hub for inland fisheries. But the problem is that we don't have an Inland Fisheries Act of Maharashtra. 95% of the subsidy which is given by the fisheries department goes to the marine fisheries, and hardly 5% is going to the inland fisheries. So there we stepped in, we prepared an action plan and we submitted to the government. The government is now acting on it. Secondly, we did a lot of research on the citrus production, that is especially the oranges, mosambis, and the limes and lemons, and how that can be marketed. Thirdly, we are in a process of preparing growth strategies for Vidarbha. So it would be for all the 11 districts of Vidarbha in 9 different sectors, what tangibly can be done so that the income, per capita income and employments can improve in this. This has been the role of the development boards. But let me share my pain here, since somebody has asked this question. The tenure of the development board is for 5 years, and our tenure ended on 30th April 2020. Now, since this is a special power of the governor wants to give extension to the board, but the state government is not giving. Forget the political part of it. We don't want to go into who is right and who is wrong and why this extension is not given. But if these development boards, which are the last statutory platform available to underdeveloped regions, if they are also deprived, then the chances of people demanding a separate state will increase manifold. We must understand that as a governance initiative, we must continue this board, because this is a legal statutory platform for people like us to raise our concerns in front of the governor. So the boards have been doing good. In fact, there is a study of the planning commission, the erstwhile planning commission, on the performance of development boards of Vidarbha, Marathwada and rest of Maharashtra. It is very easily available on the internet. Those who are interested can see that.
Yes. Thank you, Kapil sir. The next question is about the crop insurance scheme which is there in India. So, do you think that this PM crop insurance scheme is successful or not? And what is your comment on that?
Yeah, we have recently completed a study on the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And again, as I say, the problem in India is not of the intentions, but there is a problem of implementation. The scheme is a very good scheme, but it is a very badly implemented scheme. I'll give you just 2 or 3 pointers why it is badly implemented. Number one, for insurance companies are allotted on a seasonal basis. For example, company A will undertake crop insurance in 11 districts of Vidarbha for the Kharif season of 2020. Now, with this small tenure, it becomes unviable for the company to set up an office in all the districts. Now, because there is no office set up in the districts, the farmer doesn't know where to go in case of any grievances. Even the farmer is totally dependent on the state government for for getting some kind of compensation for crop failures. You and me, when we go for any kind of insurance policy, we get a dossier of documents. We get a dossier of documents. We get the insurance receipt. We get the policy number. We get so many damn things. But when the farmer goes for crop insurance, the farmer doesn't even get a single receipt. And that is why, there are a lot of lacunas in the implementation part of the scheme. Per se, the scheme is very good. Unfortunately, because we don't have a very robust system to the grassroots, and since last so many years there has been no recruitment in the government agricultural departments, I think this system is not performing to the expectation. I would not call it as a failure, but this is a highly underperforming scheme and it needs to be enhanced. Hello. Hello.
Yes, you're audible, but in between your voice is breaking.
Oh, I think that's probably because of network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can we move to the next question?
Yeah. Was I clear or should I come back again?
No, I think it was quite clear. So we can move to the next
Okay,
question.
we can go.
Okay, the next question is about the vicious circle that you mentioned in your speech. So then how is it possible to break that vicious circle in terms of agriculture problems in India?
See, first and foremost, there are, I think, only two things which can break it. Number one is awareness and educating the farmer. And secondly, investing in the sector. If you create awareness without investment, it is of no use. And if you invest without awareness, again, that is of no use. Because I'll tell you again one small example. We have a lot of forest in Vidarbha. And we have the problem of wild herbivores entering into the farms and destroying the farms very frequently. As a result of that, a lot of deliberations took place and the forest department decided that we will put a solar fence around the farm and we will give subsidy for that. So the farmers demanded a direct subsidy. It means cash was transferred to their account and it was supposed that the farmer will go and buy the solar fence according to his or her needs and then get it installed. 100% it was funded by the government. In 92% cases, the farmers did not utilize the money for the solar fence, but it was actually spent for some other unproductive purposes. So that's why I say if we want to break the vicious circle, two important things: invest monetarily and invest in terms of creating awareness for the farmer. See, the farmer is smart enough to realize what is good for him or her. If we can tell them, if we can convince them, I think it's very easy to break this, but it has to be done at a very large scale. And as it is told every time, the government says government has only one excuse: we don't have funds. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So with this, that's all. So we had all those questions that I have just asked you. So thank you, Kapil sir, for this wonderful session. And then as this was the last session of this national webinar, the theme we suggested, the theme that we chose for this seminar was understanding the pandemic and its impact on various sectors and how the policymakers are responding to it. So then in this difficult time, there are various pressing concerns like monetary policy or the fiscal policy and various constraints to that. So then rural development or regional development is also one of them. So then the topic that we discussed today, which was on the regional development perspective, I think our participants have been immensely benefited with this kind of deliberation. So I thank you so much for giving this wonderful talk. Then now I request my student AB to propose the formal vote of thanks. AB, you're there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm there. So I would
AB,
like
you're
to
not
thank.
audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, AB.
I would like to thank Dr. Kapil Chandrayan for taking out his
AB?
valuable time.
Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
AB, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I
Yes,
would
you're
like to.
audible, but your voice is breaking.
No, AB, you can continue. No problem.
I would like to thank Dr. Kapil Chandrayan for taking out his valuable time and joining us today. The session was very informative for us because you were able to connect the issue at the grassroots to what we are reading in the newspapers and media. A lot of our students don't know exactly what's happening at the grassroots, and by connecting the data and case studies, you were able to allow us to get a better perspective to what the reality of the pandemic is. So I would like to thank you especially for that. I would also like to thank Father Keith, our rector, for joining us today and for being there throughout the session. And I would like to thank Aditi ma'am and the entire economics department for conducting this wonderful session, and Aparna ma'am especially, who was the brains behind the entire series. Finally, I would like to thank our esteemed guests and our audience for being there throughout all the 4 days and attending these sessions. And we would love to hear back from you soon in our feedback form. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, boss.
Very well spoken.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
A lot of information and insight as both. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I would request that, I have just a small request, Father. If these students, if they are interested in having, once the pandemic and everything is over, you should have a study tour in regions like Vidarbha and Marathwada.
Surely, why not?
Yeah.
Ask Aditi, Parna, Brother Vivian, they can organize something.
Sure.
Yeah.
We are always there to host you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I personally thank our Father Rector, Keith, Principal Sir Dr. Rajendra Shinde, Annapurna Ma'am, Vice Principal Arts, Karuna Ma'am, Vice Principal Academic Performance, Dr. Rishikesh Samant, Aditi Ma'am, HOD Department of Economics, Manali Pawar, Brother Vivian, my entire team of Eco Circle. Special thanks to Ria, AB, and Jai for the help that they have given to me. And also thanks to all the participants who have joined us for all 4 days and actively participating to the question and answer session. So thank you so much. Aditi ma'am, you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, I want to share with Kapil that Department of Economics has already undertaken a project for Vidarbha, and we are trying to find out what is the technological know-how among farmers, because with the changing scenario, it is very important to know that how techno savvy are our farmers. Like, for example, how many of them are having smartphones, how many of them have downloaded the app, are they really using the information which is given in the app and all. So we are working as a team on this topic, and in future we might require your help, so we will certainly contact you.
Anytime. I would be happy to do that.
Certainly.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you for your lecture.
Thank you.